Let's get to the next game. Bam. Okay. So if you're our YouTube editor, hi, like now you can, okay. All right. So this is Megan Lee, white against Irina Krush. This was round 1, I believe. Yeah. And they got this position where black is already better. And this is funny. So my friend Wes Berger, who's been on the stream before, he's a 2,300 player from Michigan. He's 80 years old now, so he's not 2,300 strength anymore. He was friends with my dad before I was born. True story. He's been friends with my dad since like 1955, I think. And then I was born in 69. So I was born in the summer of 69. If you don't believe me, you can ask that Canadian guy. He'll tell you. Yeah. I mean, the Canadian government has apologized several times for Bryan Adams. Okay. So in this position, the reason I brought up Wes Berger, is Wes once said to me, Ben, you know why you're good? And I'm like, why? This is like 20 years ago he told me this. Is you make good, bad moves. Okay, and this is what he means. If you're like, what does that mean? This is what he means. A bad move would be here. That's a bad move. It hangs a queen. This is a bad move. This is a bad move. Those are the moves you guys make. This is a bad move. Okay, so these moves are bad. Here, Irina played a good bad move. The engine doesn't play Irina's move. However, since Irina's move isn't the right move, she won very quickly. It's because she has the human touch. Even better, right? Better than a water cooler. We threw in a Simpsons joke. JAA928 gifted a sub. Okay. So here's what she did. The engine plays queen takes and says black is +1. It loves black's position. Irina played a better move. She played c4. Now you might say, why did you, when I say it's better, the engine says it's not better. Okay, the engine doesn't agree. The engine says, terrible. Okay, now the engine still says that black has a better position, but not as much better because the engine plays perfectly every move. And since people don't play perfectly every move, you need to make moves that allow them to blunder. And if Irina played queen takes queen, her opponent's not really allowed to blunder. Her opponent has to take back. Nobody's going to make that blunder. Well, not nobody, but okay. Here, white has a very logical looking move that's a blunder. And that's why Irina's move is better than the engine move. She's like, okay, opponent, why don't you blunder? Now, if I was Megan Lee, I would say, wait a minute, Irina gave a pawn away, it attacks her rook. Why did she do that? Why didn't she just trade queens and not give a pawn away? That's the way I think when I'm playing chess. Most of you don't think like that. In your head, there's like, oh, it's my move? Hey, there's a pawn hanging. So the psychological part of chess is not your strong suit, okay? And Megan Lee blundered here, made a move the computer never looks at. She should take this and have a slightly worse ending, according to the engine, but she couldn't resist. She played queen takes e5. And I found out why her resistance wasn't good. She's not a fan of Muse. Irina never wins the tournament except she's won 8 times or 9 times. So you're right. Irina's won the U.S. Women's Championship more than anybody has ever won it. And when I did commentary with her, I said, you're the greatest American female player of all time. And I'm right. Otherwise, what you said was correct. Except for one thing. There's a Perrier on the right. Or is it on the rise? So that's what it is. Right, you can't join the tournament. These are invitational tournaments. Irina's played in several U.S. championships that weren't just for women. But, not now. Okay, Yeah. All right. So now Irina never plays f6. And obviously Megan Lee saw that and she checked. And Irina played king f7. And probably in Megan Lee's mind, she was like, I won a pawn and it was a center pawn and black played king f7. Great. And Irina said, yeah, great for me. Your queen's trapped. I'm checkmating you. And my king is safe. See, can I say that? No. Okay. I almost did. Now, in this position, Megan played for tricks. In my opinion, and it can never be proven unless I see her at a tournament and ask her, and it's sort of insulting, so I wouldn't do that. If it was you, I would do it, but I don't know Megan Lee. Megan probably thought this was fine for white. If she didn't think it was fine for white, why did she do it? So at some point, she realized like she made a mistake. Like, oh, I thought this was good for me, but it's not. And she resigned in 4 moves. So she doesn't have a lot of time to realize what she did wrong. The engine says she has to play rook d4, and black is close to winning. c3, and white's king is ridiculous. White's queen is ridiculous. White's rook on h1 is ridiculous. White's knight on b1 is ridiculous. And black's king is super safe. But she played for tricks, and she hastened her downfall. Rook f3, and this way her queen has a couple of squares to go to. Otherwise, that queen, if we attack it, is getting close to trapped. c3, excellent. And the engine says she should take this, which she didn't do. And then everything's good for black. Rook b8 is good. The other rook to b8 is good. Taking this is good. Threatening that. God damn. Okay, but she didn't do that. She played a takes b4, which is really bad. And you can see the clock times on the left. Okay, now another mistake that she made, and this is all from a psychological point of view, not necessarily from a chess point of view. You see the clock times in this position, okay? You see? Okay. Queen takes e5 is sharp and complicated and tactical. And queen takes queen on e7 check is boring. Okay? And if we were going to execute, let's say, Bender, we want to do it in a way that's not boring. So we probably have some magnets and pull his body apart. Then at least it's not boring. Professor Butts gifted a sub. Okay? So if I'm playing somebody who's higher rated than me or even not, and I have a minute 40 and she has 35, I'm already doing something wrong. That's unacceptable. If I gave chess lessons anymore, this is what I would be the most angry about at my student, is you have no time on your clock and there's a lot of moves to make and your opponent has tons of time. You can't do that. And so now she's going to make bad decisions because she doesn't have time to think about them. If you don't have time on your clock, keep it simple. And this is super complicated, and it's also bad, but that's besides the point. Okay, c3. So rook f3 is a mistake. A takes b4 is a mistake. And surprisingly, in this position, every move loses, but this isn't the number one move. Doesn't matter. She did this. Rook b8, and you can see that, the truth hurts. And Megan played queen g5, and then she resigned before Irina moved, because every move wins, but I could play queen takes check and queen takes knight check. What? So ridiculous. Yeah. So the engine says plus 25 for black. So we went from an equalish, slightly worse position to just death. And if Megan Lee was playing like the top computers in the world, she wouldn't have lost so badly from this position, because the top computers in the world would have traded queens. And Irina's a human, and she's like, hey, let me give you this option that's bad, because it doesn't look that bad. And Megan Lee's like, good. Okay? And then 4 moves later, she resigns. So there you go. Yeah. Thanks, B8 Checkmate. This is the psychological part of chess that I understand pretty well because I'm old. And that is, in this position, if my opponent plays c4 and they're a good player, and I know that they saw that, they must have thought that was good for them. And if I have no time on my clock, I probably believe them. Especially since I would rather have an ending than a middle game because it looks like black is crashing through. So this was bad judgment on her part. Queen takes would have been simpler and so forth. And now the game just ended immediately. It was over immediately. Yeah. It's not don't make bad moves. It's don't get in horrible time trouble and then make the most complicated move that your opponent is egging you on to make. Yeah, that's what my dad's friend meant by good bad moves. Moves that aren't the best, but that win you the game quickly because your opponent doesn't understand. And this is a very common thing that happens at a level of 2,000 to 2,300. And let me tell you what I mean. You won't understand it, but I'll tell you anyway. Maybe you watch it over and over again, you'll finally understand. Let's say I'm playing a 1,600 in a slow game, and let's say there's some wild and crazy player who's rated 2,150, and they're playing the same 1,600 in a slow game in another round. And probably I will win, and probably the other guy, the 2,150, will beat the 1,600 also. But if you want to know who's going to win more quickly, it's not going to be me. I'm going to play what I hope is a mistake-free game. I make no mistakes. The 1,600 makes a mistake every 4 moves, and after 35 moves, they're dead lost. The 2,150 might make moves that aren't the best, and the 1,600 is confused and loses the game in 12 moves. And you're like, man, why are you hiring that 2,150? He crushed that guy. You barely beat him. And that's the 2,150 plays good, bad moves. They're not the best moves, but the 1,600 can't handle the truth. However, in the long run, that 1,600 beats the 2,150 sometimes because the guy goes too far or misses something, and they get 0 out of a million against me. So, now, this is slow chess, not internet bullet when I'm texting and emailing and grabbing Karen and sliding over to get a Perrier and yelling at the chat and choking on my rage and fixing the OBS. I'm talking about real chess. Then the 1,600 isn't doing well against me. When I say they're not doing well, I've probably 100% against 1,600s for 35 years in slow chess. Not sure why I'm playing 1,600 players. DT Greg subscribed with Prime. Good. So you can see Krush is crushing it, right? And the police came when they saw how badly White was getting beat, and they were like, well, it's chess. Sometimes you lose badly. Why are you here? And they said they were just following up because they thought they might have to institute Megan's Law. Ooh, period. Thanks, W. Moss 1701. No Moss. Actually, Megan Lee got in because of nepotism. Her dad, Frank, he got her in. When they said she couldn't play, Frank said, ridiculous. And they said, all right. You know her dad, Frank Lee?